Ah, good morning. Going the extra mile. I don't think there's a better phrase that could sum up the essence of what it really means to be human. You see, animals will go the extra mile if they're forced to, if they need to search for food or if they want to avoid being eaten. But human beings can go the extra mile because we possess one of the most godlike qualities on earth, and that is inspiration. And what I'd like to do is share with you some ideas I have around where inspiration comes from, based on a journey that I took recently. And that journey started when I was listening to somebody talk about a race. And anybody here, I'd imagine quite a few of you have ran a marathon, yeah? 42 kilometers, 26.2 miles. And a marathon is quite a race. It takes quite a bit of preparation, and it can be quite a goal for some people. But what my friend was talking about was something different. This was a marathon every day, back to back for 7 days, across some of the most inhospitable terrain in the world, the Sahara Desert. And not only that, but day 4 is a double marathon, 52 miles, 84 kilometers, in 50 degrees centigrade heat in the daytime, freezing cold at night. And not just that, but you have to carry all of your own equipment. So all of the food you're going to be eating for the race, all of your means to cook it, your sleeping bag, your survival equipment, everything you have, adding about 20 kilos of weight to your shoulders. And it sounded so fantastic, it was so awe-inspiring, so impossible, that I thought I have to do it. And so I signed up, and I went over, and it was quite a journey for me because, I decided that this was going to be something that I wanted to do. What was the reason? I wanted to go and prove to myself that this was a bar that was so high that I could, just try and reach it. And what happened was, if you have a look, I've got some slides just to give you an idea of what the desert was like. These little ants running over the sand are people. And if you look behind me there's a little dot on one of the sand dunes. That's 3 people. On day 2, we're running over the highest sand dunes in North Africa. And if you're running on concrete, or if you're running on a running track, then that's one thing. But when you're running up sand dunes, soft sand, and it's sinking to your knees, it takes all the strength out of your legs. It's one of the hardest things to do, and that's on day 2. Now, luckily, we had 5-star accommodation. We're in a nice hotel. And this is what I effectively called the Moroccan Hilton. And as you can see, there's open sides, which means if there was a sandstorm at night and you slept with your mouth open, you woke up with a mouthful of sand. And we also had some very interesting creatures. And one of them was Susan. Where's Susan? There she is. This was our tent pet. And there's obviously camel spiders. And at night, you can actually feel, in your sleeping bag, you can feel the scorpions crawling over your sleeping bag sometimes. Or the camel spiders. And it's amazing the focus that you have. On the first night, you're like this. By the 3rd or 4th night, all you can think of is that they're extra calories. And this was Susan. She crawled out of one of my boots one morning, and as you can imagine, it sort of sharpens your focus a little bit for next time you go to put on your running shoes. One of the most important aspects of the race was foot management. Now, if you're a little squeamish, you may want to turn away on the next slide, and I'm luckily here to say that these aren't my feet, right? But I don't care how fit you are, if you don't look after your feet on a race like that, you're not running an extra mile. Yeah? But one of the most interesting aspects of the whole race was the isolation. You see, if you run the Boston Marathon like Dave's daughter a couple of weeks ago, or New York, or London, you have tens of thousands of people lining the streets, cheering you on. And you can draw a lot of inspiration from that. But here, when you're out in the desert, there's nothing. Maybe a camel. And it's times like that you start to go inwards and start asking yourself honest questions about what is it that you're really doing and why. And I got a lesson on that like you wouldn't believe on the 4th day. Because on the 4th day, which is the day of the double marathon, 84 kilometers, I woke up with food poisoning. I tried to save water the night before by not hydrating my food so much. And water is actually rationed. 9 liters a day, that's all you get. That's for washing, cooking, hydrating. Once it's gone, it's gone. So it's not just a physical race. It's a strategy race. Do you run with a heavy sleeping bag so that you stay warm at night, but it's harder to run in the day? Or do you run with a light sleeping bag so it's easier to run in the daytime, but you lose energy at night through being cold? Everything's a call. Do you go to the bathroom behind a sand dune and wash your hands afterwards and use precious water? Or do you not use water and risk getting diarrhea? Everything's a strategy call. So, it challenges almost every part. And on day 4, I woke up and I tried to save water the night before, and it was the wrong call. Bearing in mind, you're burning 10,000 calories a day, and you're putting in 2,000. I lost 15 kilos in 1 week. Ladies, it's not a good way to lose weight, trust me. Right? And look at me, I can't lose 15 kilos. I had to run around in the shower just to get wet. But I woke up with this food poisoning, and I remember I was so weak I couldn't lift my rucksack. And my friend put it on my back, and I walked to the start line for that day with 600 other people, and the gun went off, bang. And 600 people went, and I stayed. I couldn't run, hadn't got the energy. And I walked for the first 4 hours. And then I thought, I have to keep going, I have to push, because if I fall behind the cutoff times, I'll be disqualified. So I tried to pick up the pace. And it got to a point where at 8 o'clock that night, the sun was just setting. The temperature started to go down. It started to get cold, which means I had to run. And I'd ran 30 miles, 50 kilometers that day. And I got another 20 miles, or about 30 kilometers to go through the night. And I was done. There was nothing left. This kind of race challenges you not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And so, you have all the motivational tricks you can pull. It's like the 2 dogs you have sitting on the shoulder. One says, come on, you can do it. I believe in you. Yes, let's go. And the other one says, nah, what's the point? Yeah, quit. Nice warm hotel bed. Right? Right? And, for a large part of the race, this dog was going well. I mean, which one wins? Obviously the one you feed the most. Right? We know that. But at 8 o'clock that night, when the sun was setting, I sat down and I was done. This dog had gone to sleep. No more food. This dog was screaming loudly, saying, fire the flare. And the flare was something that they give you at the start of the race. It's a 2-pound rocket flare. Nobody likes it because it weighs a lot and you have to carry it. And if you get, you break your ankle, or you get lost, or you get bitten by a snake or a spider, then you can fire the flare and the helicopter will come in and obviously rescue you, and you're out of the race. And so every morning what I did was I used to unpack my kit, and I put this flare right at the bottom, and I used to put all my stuff on top, because I thought in my mind it was always easier to take one more step than it would be to stop and unpack the kit and fire the flare. But in my mind, this flare was getting higher and higher in my bag. And this dog saying, look, just do it. And I was done. I hadn't eaten for 24 hours because I couldn't stomach breakfast that morning. And the prospect of running another 30 Ks through the night, on a compass bearing, I just couldn't do it. And I sat down and I started to cry. I was done. There was nothing left. And it's times like that where inspiration can either come in or it won't. And it usually has a habit, as we've heard from some of the other speakers here today, of coming from some very interesting places. And for me, I was sitting down and I was ready to throw in the towel. I was going to fire my flare. And I heard a noise. And I looked up. It was like a trudging noise. And I looked up and I thought, wow, what is that? And out of the dusk, as the sun was setting, these 2 figures were coming through. And one was a blind Korean guy in his late 60s, tied at the wrist to his guide. And I sat down and watched these guys in silence just move down through the desert. And I sat there, I'm like, wow, what did I just see? I mean, what makes somebody who clearly isn't an athlete, is a pensioner, who can't even see where to place his feet, want to run what is effectively the toughest foot race in the world? I mean, what motivates somebody to do that? I sat there and just in amazement. I'm like, well, I've got to find out. But to find out, I have to catch him. And so I got up and I ran after him, and about 10 minutes later I caught up with them, and I found out through his translator, who was also his guide, that several years before, this man's brother had died of cancer. And every single year, he ran this race to raise money for the hospice that looked after his brother. I'm like, whoa. If ever I needed a lesson or a reminder that it's not about me, we do things for others far more than we would do for ourselves. And it was incredible. He inspired me. He inspired me to finish that night, finish that stage, run another 26.2 miles the next day, and then finish the race the day after. And here's a picture of me a little happier at the end of the race, and I think the smile says it all there. But it gave me a lesson, because up until that point, and if some of you know my background, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I dropped out of school at 16. I have no formal qualifications. I started my first company at 17, and I built many companies over the course of the last 20, 30 years. And some have failed majestically, some have been okay, some we just won't talk about, some should have stayed ideas, and some have been very good. But in my early days, what I was driven by and what inspired me to be successful was the avoidance of the insecurities that I had to try to prove that I was good enough. You see, one of the things I've done over the last 10, 12 years is I've traveled about a month every year, volunteering my times at different places, working with drug addicts, homeless, abuse cases, trauma, suicide. And that's given me quite an observation of different types of human behavior. And one thing I saw was we all have two primary fears. And that is the fear that we're not enough. That we're not good enough, tall enough, short enough, old enough, young enough, good looking enough, popular enough, rich enough, whatever it is, fill in the blank. And if our mind doesn't think we have a blank to fill in, it's usually because our ego is playing hide and seek with reality. And for me as a young man, it was all about proving that I was good enough to the world. And that gets you so far. But what I learned was that emotional maturity really starts to happen when you switch your mindset from being egocentric and what can I take from this world, to ethnocentric or world-centric and what is it that I can contribute. I owe that one to a blind Korean guy I'll probably never see again. And it was interesting because when I made that switch, and it was like a light bulb going off, it's like I'd spent my entire life trying to prove to my parents, to my friends, to myself that I was good enough. It was the reason I started and signed up for the race in the first place, if I was honest. But inspiration sitting on that rock, about to throw in the towel, was never going to come from me trying to prove something to myself. That place wasn't deep enough. But seeing somebody as an example to the world, to himself, to others, that was wanting to put himself through such a physical challenge to contribute was inspiration to me to be able to finish. And it was shortly after that that I got exposed to a business idea. I get business ideas across my desk almost every week. And this was a few years ago. I got a business idea that was a technology that could help change the world with regards to energy. We know we're living in a time now that is very critical in terms of energy independence, energy sustainability. We have an energy crisis going on globally. And this was a concept called space-based solar power. And if you take normal sheets of solar panels, but instead of putting them on rooftops where every night it gets dark, if you were to put them in space, in orbit, where the sun never sets, and there is a way you can transmit that energy 24/7 safely and reliably through radio wave back to Earth as and when it's needed in real time. And I'm like, wow, if that's real, that could change everything. And I had a look at the technology, and I did some due diligence. I spoke to some of the guys at NASA and Boeing, and they said, well, yeah, the technology's there, but it's never been commercially viable. We've never been able to make it pay. And that's the reason it's not been done in business. The business case doesn't close. And so I looked at it, and I shared with my business mentors, and almost everyone said, Peter, if you get involved in this, it will ruin your reputation, you'll likely go bankrupt, and it's 1,000 to 1. Now, when I heard 1,000 to 1, I got excited. But what's inspired me more, and it's been a several-year journey now, and it's been a journey with obstacles like you wouldn't believe. It's been a journey of frustration, of almost wins, and what has kept me and my team going through that journey is one thing. It's the fact that we're focused on what this technology can do for others. Nobody here wants to be on the cover of Time magazine. That's not what we're doing. We're happy to be in the background. We'll almost be happy almost to go bankrupt if it means that we can pass the baton onto the next company that can move this forward. Because an entrepreneur's dream at this level is the ability to be involved in something that can leave a thumbprint on humanity, that can transcend our lifetime. And for me, that was a huge lesson about, again, turning my focus from what is it that I can get? Why am I here? What's in it for me? I mean, what do I want? A bigger house? versus being able to leave a difference. Give me a break. Now, if you'd have asked me in my 20s, the answer was clear. I'd want 2 houses. But again, that's emotional maturity when it comes down to understanding where true inspiration comes from. And I firmly believe that we're living in a time now, here in Portugal, in many other countries, where we're facing tough decisions, tough challenges, and tough economic times. And we have one of 2 ways that we can approach that, sitting on that rock. We can either turn around and say, well, what's in it for us? What actions do I need to take to look after myself? Or we can say, how can we band together as a family, as a city, as a country, as a nation, as a planet, and focus on what it is that we can contribute to getting out of this mess and raising our level of consciousness, not just focusing on raising our own bank balance. And it is that kind of energy that will transform the situation that we're in right now. It is that kind of energy from willing to be able to go the extra mile from that place, not from this place, that will create lasting change and a lasting impact. And I firmly believe that it is the energy of that we can really change the world with. Thank you.